Welcome back to the Loss Prevention News Network. I'm Amber Bradley with my co-MC Joe LaRocca, who's going to introduce our special guest.
We are thrilled that Bob Moraca, Vice President of Loss Prevention with the National Retail Federation, is joining us. Bob, thanks for being here.
It's great, Joe.
Okay, so this is the burning hot table question that everyone's asking. We got to get it cleared up once and for all. Are you two related?
Yes.
No. Yes.
We're Italian cousins.
It's an Italian thing.
It's an Italian thing.
We've talked about this every time Bob has joined live D&D, and we've always said LaRocca, Moraca, no relation. It's been kind of my own personal hilarity that I love to get out of it, but we really had to clear that up. You get the question.
I get the question. It's funny. Really bright folks in the industry will come to me and say, Moraca, you related to LaRocca? And then they realize what they've said and they go, oh, never mind. You know, it's kind of, but
that whole alphabet thing.
It is. It's an Italian thing.
Okay, so you have some actual serious questions.
So
for
I
our
can drive
special
this
guest.
down a serious road
Yes,
right
let's do
now.
it.
So, Bob, as the Vice President of Loss Prevention for the National Retail Federation, something tells me you keep pretty busy. You've got a number of different things going on in your world. Can you give us just a 1-minute snapshot of what are some of your top priority and focus items going on right now?
Yeah, that's great. We're in the process of expanding the Loss Prevention Council, and that's really the heartthrob, and they really drive what we do there in loss prevention to try to move the industry forward. They find the emerging issues. They're experiencing the emerging issues. We're up over 50 major retailers now. They're at loss prevention executive level, and it is a really bright, smart group. I'm just honored to kind of lead them. But everyone understands. I'll give you a great example. People talk about the more aggressive retail criminal we're seeing, right? At every level, we're seeing stabbing, shootings, mace being used, people being punched for no reason. It's passive resistance. We never want to get in an argument or a fight, but the knuckleheads are coming in and, frankly, acting this way. So we've done some empirical research. We added some questions to the Organized Retail Crime Survey this year, asking specifically about that. And sure enough, to no one's surprise, 97% of the retailers responded with, yes, they're seeing that level of aggression, and 17 of that 97% said they're seeing a much more aggressive person. So we know it's happening in the industry, those trends, but we're finding the empirical evidence that says yes, and then we're trying to help come up with solutions.
I love that. I think in one of the surveys, I think it was the National Retail Security Survey, or maybe it was the ORC survey, it made mention that this whole restorative justice, decriminalization effort going on, I'm very sensitive to it, living in California and Los Angeles. I think we've really gone down the wrong track, if you will. We've started to turn shoplifting into a revolving door crime where we do nothing more than give people a slap on the wrist like a traffic ticket and traffic school versus giving anyone real consequences so they understand that crime is crime and you should not be coming back into retail stores and adding to the recidivist rate, if you will,
Sure.
in California or anywhere else. What is NRF doing at the national level? Are other states experiencing the same issues that we are? And what can you tell us about your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a great question, Joe. And being a former law enforcement professional myself, crime is crime. So when you hear this, it's just shoplifting kind of thing. They're not looking underneath and, say that shoplifter just got caught for the first time. It could be on their 50th, 60th, 70th, repetitive crime. And then they get involved with groups and the ORC and it grows. So you really, if you think about the criminological broken window theory, you've got to stop crime when it first starts taking place or it then becomes cultural. So I'm a big believer in, let the punishment fit the crime. The restorative justice movement as a volunteer process, I'm all for it. If retailers say, you know what, we want to give folks, even in my law enforcement days, the counties level and even the state level, they had pre-trial intervention programs. So if you're a first-time criminal, you kind of get a break, one bite at the apple, and then you go through a program, but don't commit a second crime kind of a thing. So I don't mind those kind of programs, but when you start putting it legislatively in place, it's just a message to, I call them, the retail criminal or the knuckleheads out there, that it's just open season.
Yeah,
And let's
so
face it.
So
these-
you're saying the volunteer education piece instead of the legal consequences.
Yes. Yeah, I don't have, yeah, I think that's good. And, I've seen the stats on what the recidivism rate may or may not be. But I don't mind that, but I don't like it when it becomes mandatory, because, like I
Right.
said, that sends a horrible message to the criminals. And a lot of criminals create the shoplifting and retail theft as their day job. And at night, they're out, running drugs, sticking a gun in someone's ear, taking a purse. I mean, they're real street criminals.
And
So-
doesn't this issue go hand in hand with the lowering of the felony threshold?
Raising of the felony threshold
Yeah,
levels.
right.
From
So-
low amounts to higher amounts.
Right.
We've seen that, the Pew study. I think it's about 30 states now over the last few years who have
Right.
done that, taken that activity. I've read the Pew study. But
So it's now
what-
1,000 in some states.
In some states,
Yes.
that's right.
Yeah.
And
From 1,500.
Yeah, interestingly enough, when you talked about the ORC survey and the National Retail Security Survey that we sponsor, we have seen just like the individual shoplifting incident, just the single incident. Stay away from ORC. That theft level now has gone from about $310 to just shy of $800, almost like $780. So that's a direct effect.
Right.
So if it's a $500 felony level, criminal comes in, he's going to steal up to that level because he knows what he can do.
That's an incredible
Right?
correlation.
Now it's hitting
that they can
800,
prove.
the single incident.
Right.
I mean, it is. So that the Pew survey kind of said, oh, there's no change in the number of crimes, but they're not looking at the volume.
Right.
I mean, that's what it really impacts retail.
That's really fake news when you take all things into consideration. And what we see in California, I think, tracks perfectly to that. And tell me if you agree with this. The other cause is a national epidemic that we're seeing. It's this addiction to opioid abuse and drugs. People lose their senses and they're desperate, and they see retail crime as really an easy way to score some money and potentially fence for some drugs. Does that track with some of the things you're seeing in other parts of the country?
It does, Joe. And I think it's also tied to that level of violence. Because one thing to come in and want to steal something, it's another thing to have that addiction and be kind of forced into that, whatever your drug of choice is. I mean, I saw it over the decades, years ago with heroin, and now you're just seeing it with a different drug. That's now a legal drug just being abused by so many folks. And I think there's also this, and they understand what they can get away with, Joe. So it's frustrating. And I think there's another level of just this, how do you say, disrespect for authority that we're seeing.
Right.
That's a trend over the last 7 to 8 years. It's not just, it's our law enforcement partners are being abused on the streets. There's just that lack of respect. It's school teachers. It's, anyone in a position of authority. And let's face it, our LP brethren and sisters are in that same boat. Right. They're the authority figure, so they take that hit. And I think you see that up and down the scale. I'd like to think that we've seen a little bit of a change in the recent past, maybe a little more law and order being established. So hopefully you maybe see that trend reverse, but we shall see.
Well, what's really scary in reading the most recent survey is that although these crimes are getting worse, like you're articulating, there's only 5% of your survey respondents said they were going to increase their budget for technologies that help combat these things.
That is a horrific trend. So interestingly enough, when we ask our executives in those surveys, what are you seeing? You're seeing probably 2/3. I think it was about 2/3 of the budgets are flat, and then you find out that the technology, they're not spending as much on technology. And when we asked them, this was an interesting, how many more LP professionals do you need to keep up with the amount of crime that's taking place right now? The number was 6.9, so it's about 7 bodies, right? So if you think about it, if the LP exec today or the regionals, if you feel like you're working harder and doing more with less, you actually are. As proof, it's in there. So it's hard. It's very hard.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Bob, we're going to need to turn it back over to Gus in just a minute, but before we go, we'd be remiss if we didn't touch on one topic. What we're going to do as an industry to talk about these issues and what the next big forum is going to be. And I think something about y'all going to Texas.
There's this organization called the National Retail Federation, and our NRF Protect event is at the Gaylord this June coming up, June 11th through the 13th, the Gaylord National in Texas, outside of Dallas, and we've got some great things, an emerging leaders event, where Women in LP have a whole luncheon and some inspirational speakers for that. We have Teresa Payton, who was the first CIO, Chief Information Officer for the White House, coming to talk to us about cyber, and she really wants to have a dialogue and a discussion. She's really terrific, and she'll put it in terms that we as LP folks will understand. So a lot of great things going on. I'd encourage you to go to the NRF Protect 18 website and check us out. Get in early, you save money to register. So
Great. And as a retailer, for those of you interested in attending, especially if you're local to the market, as a retailer, there's the Expo Only Hall Pass, which is free of charge. So you can go visit the show, walk the exhibits, go to a few of the parties, and take it from there. So Bob, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us. Really
Terrific.
appreciate your time. And we're going to turn it back over to Gus Downing right now.